So, I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal life, about my romantic life right now. I've had a really hard year. I've had a lot of changes to adapt to. I've been working really, really hard. Stuff is going on all over the place, but one really big thing is dating. I've met and dated quite a few different people, and they've been really intense experiences. One thing happened kind of towards the end of January and kind of went on for about a month, yeah, really, really intensely. And during that time, I was having a lot of fun, and we had this really intense sort of connection, and we had some intense times together. But at the time, I just thought, no, this isn't going to work for so many different reasons, and I was just not open to the idea of actually exploring that. And then a series of events happened that made me realize something. So some things happened. I got really angry, and I said to this guy, I was like, don't call me, don't get in touch with me, don't text me, don't tell me why. I don't want to know why. Actions speak louder than words. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want to speak to you again. I don't want to see you again. That's it. So I had this it was like a massive overreaction to something quite small, but I felt so angry and so hurt about this small thing that I just wanted to never feel that again, I suppose, and not be disappointed in that way again. And I just wanted to end things. It was a really immature sort of way to act. But at the time, I was so angry. That's what I did. But a few days later, as the days went on, I came to this slow, painful realization that the reason why I'd had this massive reaction was because I actually cared about him, that I had grown to deeply care about this guy, and that he had come to really matter. And so that was a massive revelation for me. But then it was really painful to think that I had come to realize that I cared for him, and the reason I realized that was because of the loss, because I'd burned all bridges and was not going to see him again. And so then after that came a couple of weeks of actual emotional hell. I was in so much pain over this because what stayed with me were the times that we'd spent together that were so intense, where there had been this deep connection and we'd had a really great time, and the things that had made me grow to care about him, and the loss of that, coming to terms with the loss of that through the way that I'd behaved in, and also coming to grips with the fact that actually I'd behaved in a way that was not in line with my values and who I am, who I want to be. I don't want to be, I don't want to lash out and hurt people or punish people just because I feel suddenly super angry in the moment. That's not a loving thing to do, and I want to be a loving person. So all of those things, like the pain of having done something that was not true to myself, about that action having these lasting consequences, of having destroyed something, all that kind of thing was super painful for me. I got back in touch with him. I was like, can we talk about this? Can we meet up? And he was like, no, I don't want to. And then I was still in a lot of pain. And after 2 weeks, I just thought, I can't bear this. I cannot bear this kind of pain. And I wrote him this great big long email, and just openly talked about how I felt, about the things I'd come to realize, and what I wanted. And after I wrote this email, where I did a bit of soul searching, and I thought, I'm just going to be completely honest and say what I really feel, and say it in the best way that I can. After I wrote it, I felt really peaceful. I felt great, actually. It was the first peace that I'd had in a long time. And I sent it, and in a weird way, as soon as I sent the email, I felt, actually, that's what I needed to do. I don't need him to respond in any particular way. I just needed to be honest, and I needed to own up to what I'd done, and I needed to say sorry about that, and I needed to be honest about how I felt. So I sent this email, and then after that, he got back in touch, and he said, I'm replying to your email. He got back in touch straight away. He said, I got your email, I'm writing back, but I'm really tired and it's getting late. I'm only halfway done, so I'll have to finish it tomorrow. And at that point, we started texting, because at that point, I just thought, amazing. Like, I thought, we're going to be back in touch. It's just great to be talking again. But what I didn't know, and what I should have waited for, was the contents of the email. Because what happened was this really strange thing where I felt like actually we were talking again and things were back to normal again. But they weren't, because actually what the email said was, when you sent those messages saying you don't want to see me anymore, etc., etc., my perception of you changed, and I don't want that kind of drama in my life. It's too stressful for me, and I realized that actually I don't want to connect with you anymore. That's what the email said. I didn't get that email for a couple of days after we started having this weird sort of texting back and forth. And that texting period was really painful for me, because there was this sort of weird confusion going on where I was like, oh, things are back to normal again, it's all okay. But actually they weren't. And so I was like, what's going on? Then I got the email, and I read it. And I guess that is when everything shifted, just like in an instant. I went from this incredible pain and regret that I'd been feeling to just, a simple pain of the loss, but not a pain of trying to change things or wanting things to be better or trying to repair things or trying to get back together. Like, that pain was gone, and that was the deeper emotional pain. And that's when I realized something. I realized that the pain was not coming from me wanting to be with somebody who doesn't care about me. As soon as I found out that, something shifted in a moment for him internally, and he didn't actually care about me, he didn't love me. As soon as I realized that, that was it. There was nothing in me that wished anymore to be with him in any way. Because who wants to be with someone who doesn't care about you or, doesn't love you? Who wants that? Nobody wants that. The thing that I missed was the guy that had expressed all this love and care and attention and all that kind of thing. The person I connected with. The person I missed was the person who cared for me, not the person who didn't care for me. And that's what I've realized about coming to terms with a breakup or a loss. The thing that makes it so hard to let go is that you want to be with the person who cares for you. But if somebody is saying that they don't want to be with you, and this may be making things a bit simplistic, but the thing about somebody who says they don't want to be with you, or who doesn't even say that, who just isn't demonstrating that they want to be with you, the thing about that person is that regardless of whatever times of connection you've shared, whatever bonds of attachment you've built, the fact is that person in their current state does not care about you. The person who cares about you wants to be with you. That person does not care about you. And so anyway, a lot of things happened. A lot of realizations happened after this thing happened in like January, February. First of all, I grew as a person because I'd had this like massive overreaction that had made me realize that I cared about him, and then I realized that, God, that was really immature for me to do that sort of like, I'm taking my toys and going home just because in a moment I felt hurt or disappointed, and that emotion was too much for me to handle. And just coming to the realization that actually that's not okay for me to act that way. That is not the person I want to be, and that is not mature. And actually I'm having that reaction because on some level I'm kind of afraid of the disappointment or the hurt or the potential loss and all that kind of thing. That's making me do this sort of punishing, immature sort of action. Realizing that was really liberating, because I thought, I don't need to do that. I don't have to be that person. If I feel disappointed, if I feel deeply disappointed because I've actually grown to care about somebody without realizing, and in that moment, when I feel that disappointment, I don't need to punish that person for it. What I can do is do the braver thing, do the vulnerable thing, and just say, I feel really disappointed, and not blame the person for it, and not go, this is your fault, but say, and actually say, I'm not blaming you for this, but I do feel really disappointed. I was really looking forward to this, and I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but just want you to know that this was important to me, that you are important to me. I can do that. That's the braver thing, that's the more honest thing, and that's more in line with who I want to be. So that's one realization that came out of it, the fact that I can be a bigger person than I have been up to this point, that I don't have to like lash out and go nuts whenever I'm disappointed or angry. So that was really good. That was really liberating. The other thing I came to realize was that that I can care, that I can fall in love, that I can absolutely, that it's possible, that there are people out there even now that I can connect with deeply, and I can really grow to love. And just understanding that I had, and I have, just understanding that I have that capacity to love, and that when I am caring about someone in that way, that means that feeling disappointed or angry or upset or anything with that person is not the bigger thing, that I'm bigger than those feelings. That's what love means. Love means that when all these painful emotions get stirred up, you can still treat that person lovingly and not punish that person. To realize that I had that capacity to be that loving, that was a big realization. And the fact that I'm ready to, that I'm open to feeling that now, that was a big thing. And so I guess after that happened, January, February, dating changed for me, because I've been dating for 6 years or whatever since. But anyway, and seeing different people, and like had various relationships over that time. I say 6 years because that's when my marriage ended. because I was married before. But anyway, so dating has changed for me this year in that I'm approaching it from a more open place where I'm okay with connecting and actually just openly embracing the possibility of getting to know someone and growing to care for them. So yeah, that's been different. But obviously with that comes risk. The risk of getting hurt, the risk of getting attached and then things ending, the risk of getting attached and then being rejected, that kind of thing. Not so much the rejection thing, actually. I guess that's the other thing I've grown to realize, is that when you openly just love people, and when you just openly care for people and are really truly getting to know them and listening to them and building something out of real connections that are happening, as opposed to your fear of what might happen and your desire of what you want to happen, when you're basing things on reality, there isn't so much a problem with rejection, because rejection tends to be about somebody saying no to you when you ask them for what you want, and about what you want being something not just in the present but kind of in the future as well. That's what rejection tends to be about. It's when you have an agenda and you bring that to someone saying like, this is what I really want from you, and then they go no. That's rejection. When you come to a relationship openly and you're just getting to know them, and what they want and what they're bringing to it is just as valid and has just as much weight as what you're bringing and what you want, when that is going on, rejection is not so much an issue. But disappointment, pain, that sort of thing, the pain of things ending, that is really the risk you take on. The pain of loss. Because you build something, and as you start building it, you start creating something that's good. And when that ends, that's the pain that you need to deal with. But it's not the pain of rejection, it's the pain of loss. It's quite different. So yeah, so I've been through a series of various other like interesting learning experiences and dating type experiences since the end of February. And most recently I started talking to somebody that I met on a dating website, but we didn't meet in person. That's the weird thing. And he wasn't like, in certain ways, like, I was so drawn to him and really loved talking to him. And we were talking on the phone a fair bit, and even like, but it was really intense. But we didn't meet because just because of work schedules and stuff like that, and we were trying to sort out a time to meet, but it was going to happen like after a week or like after a week and a half. That's what was going on. And we were talking on the phone and texting, and a part of me was like, well, just chill out a bit, and you don't actually know this person, you don't know this man, you don't know what the chemistry or connection really is like in person, because I do think that physical in-person chemistry can be very, very different from what happens when you're just talking to someone. And there are things that you can't help about physical chemistry, like the way someone smells or the way they feel or the way they, like all those things. You can't help your basic sort of physical reaction to those sorts of things. And you can only find out what they are when you're with someone. That's what I think. That's how it is for me. Maybe it's different for you. But for me, I have to be with someone like actually in the same place to know what the connection is. So even though we were having these times on the phone where I just felt this intense sort of attraction, even though that was happening, I was just like, well, let's wait and see. Let's wait until we've met. But I liked a lot of things about him, like the way he was going about it all. So many things were so attractive to me. But we hadn't met, and he was like very sort of focused, like, right, so when are we going to meet up? How's this going to happen? And he was like doing all this, which was like super attractive as well, obviously. But a weird thing happened last weekend. So we'd been kind of like planning through like the entire week how we could meet up on the weekend and how he could drive over, like the hour drive, to come see me at like noon on Sunday. We were going to do this. And Saturday morning, I had a text from him saying, "Oh, sorry, I couldn't ring you last night because my relatives stayed really late. I think I just fell asleep." And this text was coming on the heels of us like talking and chatting and texting all week long. And then Friday night, we'd been sort of texting back and forth even while his relatives had been over, and just like all really sort of flirtatious kind of thing, because texts are like that. You don't like start chatting about things on text. It's like the texting was kind of flirting, and then when we talked, we talked. And so, yeah, he was supposed to ring me Friday night, but after his relatives left, they stayed a long time. He didn't ring. That was okay. Like I thought, something like that must have happened. Saturday morning, I get this text saying like, "Sorry, blah blah blah." I text back saying, "Hey, no worries," smiley face. I reckoned something like that had happened. And that's it. That was the end. That was the end of that thing. I never heard from him again. That was on Sunday, like 4 days ago, 5 days ago, like nearly a week ago. It's a weekend now, nearly. So, yeah, that was weird. And at first I was just like, okay, well, I've never met him. But then on the other hand, there was this like, there was this like, just this weird disconnect of like, well, what happened? And so I texted him a couple of times going like, well, on Saturday I was like, are we meeting up tomorrow? Because I hadn't heard from him. I was like, I'm kind of confused. Are we meeting up? Nothing. And then like yesterday I texted him going like, how strange. My text was just like, how strange. Just as I was growing fond of you. Wonder if we would have gotten on well in person. And I guess that text already, for me, it had a sort of finality. It wasn't like trying to open things up. For me, that was like me looking for closure, kind of like, this is over. Like, he's not, I don't know what's going on with him, but this sort of behavior is not cool. Like, that's not cool. So, but I've just been feeling this like huge sort of like frustration over not having closure over this. And that's when I had this realization. I thought back to what happened with this other intense thing in January, February, about how I went from like all the stuff that needed resolving, how it got resolved in that email I received when he said, my perception of you changed and I just didn't want to connect with you anymore. When I realized, like, oh, like in his words, he's saying he just does not want to connect with me anymore. It does not, whatever the reason, he just does not want to. When I realized that, that gave me like a massive sense of closure, and I was able to just simply let go and move on. There was like there was some sadness over the loss, but there wasn't any sort of like wishing it were different or wanting to get back together or whatever. And what I realized was that was kind of what I wanted from this like most recent thing. Was I wanted him to say like, I just don't want to see you anymore or whatever. But then I thought, why do I need that from him? because his actions are saying that. The reason I'm wanting to hear that confirmation from him is because deep down, I really believe that I did believe that he cared about me on some level, that he was attracted to me, that he wanted to meet me and kind of explore this thing, see if there was something there worth exploring. That's what I believed. The thing that I missed was not the person who didn't care about me and didn't want to talk to me or be with me. The thing I missed was the person who had been there, who did care about me. And so it was like I was wanting him to actually say in words, well, no, I'm not that person. But actually, the realization I had today was that the thing that so often